recorded. This is the Red Ticket Blues Podcast. I am Brian Buckley. This is hitting the internets on August 18th, 2016. How are you and you and you and especially you? Remember, you can listen to every Red Ticket Blues podcast episode on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and follow me on Twitter at BrianBuck13 and at Red Ticket Blues. We have our weekly guest. Yes, it is our old friend. He returns to the podcast, WFAN sports talk show host and CBS sports talk show host, Chris Moore. Chris is a great guy. Chris is a great listen. Always fun talking to him. We have to talk A-Rod. I mean, it's ad nauseum. We've been talking about him. It's maybe people are having a little too much A-Rod overload, but I think we have to say goodbye. It's a proper send-off for Alex Rodriguez. We get into the election a little bit. Just talk a little bit about it. And Emperor Goodell is he's making a ruling again. He's making a declaration. There could be a ruling soon. But enough of me babbling. Let's listen to the podcast. All right, folks, we welcome back our old friend from WFAN and CBS Sports Radio, Chris Moore. Chris, how's it going?
Good, Brian. What's up, brother?
Nothing. How's your summer? How's everything going?
Hot.
Yes, it is hot.
It's hot like everybody else's summer. I mean, it's been unbelievable. But I played a lot of golf, and it's been good. My son is, my youngest is 17, so one more year of school for him. So good to have him around. Then it'll get pretty quiet around the Moore household.
So you go outside and play golf in this weather? Are you nuts?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, you can't. It's never hot enough for me to not play golf. I can play golf in any weather.
Oh my God,
can't keep me off the links. Can't keep me off from shanking that ball and hitting it into the water and doing all the things that make golf great.
God bless you. I can't think of that, so I'm just going to sit in my apartment in beautiful, lovely, historic New Haven, and I'll think about you guys on the golf course because that's insane. So I see right now that you're enjoying the wonderful elixir of National Tell a Joke Day on Twitter.
I was, yes. I had a couple of shorts. It's a challenge on Twitter with National Tell a Joke Day because of the 140 characters. But, I have a stale group of jokes that my friends know are just, they're just tired of hearing them, and I never stop telling them because I'm an annoying guy. So it works out well for me, and I'm proud of myself, and I don't think anyone else is. But that's okay. One is enough.
I just read the one about the shoes. You have.
Oh yeah, there's a double there, which I like about the shoes is, and we'll tell the listeners because they may not have caught National Tell a Joke Day. But the nice one about the shoes is that you can come back with the zinger.
Right.
It's like a combination. It's like a boxer with a combination. You like the first one, then you come back, and you really disappoint them with the second one. So I said, I went to a store today, and I bought a pair of shoes, and the guy said to me, do you want a box for those? And I said, no, I'd rather wrestle. And then they usually groan. And then right after that, I come back with, well, he said to me, well, okay, do you want to wear them out? And I said, no, I'd like to keep them forever. So now you get another rim shot. I was able to double up.
Those are like the definition of dad jokes. Those are
yes, and under 140 characters. So come on.
Oh, those are good. So let's get into this here. Let's go over the week that was last week for Alex Rodriguez. I mean, a guy that I feel like we can't stop talking about. I do a podcast. You're doing a talk show. I'm sure you're done talking about Alex Rodriguez. I know you're a Yankee fan. Where do you stand? I mean, just because there's a divided camp here on this man. Where do you stand? Where do you stand?
Very much
Alex
so.
Rodriguez?
I'm on the unpopular side. I never liked the whole thing, Brian. I never liked them signing him. I thought he was the first guy that really set his own terms when he came to the Yankees, and I thought they outbid themselves, which was embarrassing for a franchise with that pedigree and that history to go out of their way for the guy. And I thought it was a money sell. We're going to sell his 650th homer, his 700th homer, his 715th homer, his 756th homer, his 773rd. Every record he breaks, we're going to sell it, and Steiner Sports it and make it into some kind of, national event. And I thought it was really an embarrassing thing for an organization that I grew up with that really never embarrassed me before. So I was very anti-Alex to begin with, so I had that bias coming in. And now looking back on it, 12 years, he would have been 13, but he was suspended for the 2014 season, one World Series appearance, multiple failures in the playoffs, 12 hits in his last 88 at-bats in the playoffs, no home runs from 2010 on in the playoffs. I could go on and on. My point is basically, and this is the Yankees' fault, so you can't blame Rodriguez for it, but he got Boris, he got the money. You get that kind of money, and it's our money. If you're paying a Comcast bill, well, not Comcast this year because they're out with the Yankees, but if you're paying cable TV bill and you're buying tickets at the stadium, that's your money. A part of that is your money. And he didn't live up to his contract, and he was a distraction. And there were a lot of negatives, a lot more negatives than positives. And, I just choose to look at it that way. So to me, I couldn't wait for him to leave. I couldn't wait for him to leave. And as far as them owing him anything, the whole thing was very awkward last week, Girardi and all that, how he got caught. But in my mind, they didn't owe him anything. They had paid him a fortune. He had not delivered on it. He had brought embarrassment to the organization, and he couldn't play at the end, but was happy to collect the money anyway. And, I don't really blame him for that. He didn't force him at gunpoint to sign him through age 42. But the bottom line is he could have handled the whole thing a lot better, and he didn't have to come on with Mike. He really lost me. Brian.
That was one of
the... Yeah, he really lost me that day.
Exactly.
He lost me that day. How he didn't lose Mike, I have no idea. Like, why Mike... I guess Mike just didn't take it personally and realized, Mike's a smart guy. He realized that having that format and having him come on his air was going to bring a lot of ears and a lot of publicity to that show, and that it couldn't really be a bad thing. And he's right about all that.
Oh, 100%.
But the way he lied and he wasn't on a witness stand. No one forced him to come in. I happened to be in the studio that day. I was working for CBS that evening, and when Alex came in, I was there. And, the whole thing was an orchestrated, it was unbelievable. It was like a spy novel, the way he came in the back and up the freight elevator and had all his protection guys with him. And, it's like an entourage of 7 or 8 guys, and he came in and, no, Mike, I didn't do it. No, Mike, I didn't do it. No, Mike, I'm being persecuted here for nothing. That's the day that I lost all hope that he wasn't the guy that I perceived him to be. And that's the day that I really turned negative for good on Alex Rodriguez, despite what he did in 2009, which no one can deny and no one's going to take away from him. It was the only time, 2009 was the only time that he really came through in such a way, especially in the postseason, the way that they had paid him for. And let's face it, guys get paid. Brian, we could go on forever, but guys get paid now in this century for what they can do in the postseason. The more and more teams make the playoffs in all the sports, the more the contracts really relate to what are you going to bring me when January gets here in the NFL, when May gets here in the NBA, when October gets here in baseball. What are you going to bring me then? Because a lot of guys can do it in the regular year. I need guys that step up and come through in the postseason. And Alex Rodriguez was an abject failure in the postseason, save the 1 year. So, not only was it a character flaw, it also was, hey, you're taking $250 million. You better play better than this when the brightest lights are on. And for me, he didn't do it.
Confession, I knew exactly how you felt about Alex Rodriguez, but I just wanted to let you get that out there.
Well, I pretty much did. I feel better now.
I'm sure you do. I feel like we're in the minority, honestly, because I feel the same way. Like, I don't know Alex Rodriguez. I've seen him on television, and I was never a fan, just like you, even before he came to the Yankees. And even more so, I agree with you, after he came in with Mike, and not to make this about Mike, but after he came on that show, you're right, there was no gun to his head. And for Mike to just allow him to come on there and lie to his face, and then after it came out that Alex had just lied for 45 minutes, Mike sort of just, lets that be like, yeah, well, it happens. I mean, I'm sorry, but for most people, if someone lied to me, especially screw a show, screw my profession, how I make money, just lied to me into my face for 45 minutes on the street, I don't think I'd be defending them afterwards. But back to A-Rod, yeah, I feel the same way. I think that 2009 makes you think, honestly. It makes you think, that one year he was really good. That's weird. He was in the postseason every year, and we can go on and on about that. But I want to ask you here, have the callers changed? So, especially the last 3 years, you working the radio, has the callers changed drastically on A-Rod? Because there is a large camp, and you see them on Twitter, who hated A-Rod. He was a terrible guy, and the Yankees made him a sympathetic figure. Now it's cool to be on the Go A-Rod train. Has it changed that much, or am I just sort of living in social media land?
Yeah, I think it's a more social media land than it is overall. I will say that, to his credit, he really couldn't have handled things much better over the last year and a half or 2 years. I mean, he really couldn't have. And,
not at all. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He was going to collect the money, and he was going to, I don't think it's been easy for him. I don't know how it could be easy for him. It just had to be kind of painful. I think he's probably fairly relieved. I mean, he couldn't run anymore.
It was ugly.
No fun. Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I think that's the proper word. I think it was, ugly for all those that were willing to see it. But as we see with this election and in other things in life, but it's more clear when you have a presidential election like this, you get people that are in camp and they are closed-minded, and it's over. It's over. I mean, it becomes a badge of honor almost to defend your guy no matter what he says or does. And clearly the Trump supporters are that way, and they're allowed, just like sports fans are allowed to take in any evidence they want or ignore any evidence they want. And people will stick to their guns very much on a sports argument or on a political argument. They will stick to their guns, and they will stay with their guy, and they don't want to hear anything that muddies that water. So I can't say that I'm overly surprised that there are still some A-Rod supporters. Clearly he did more last year than I ever thought he would.
Right.
Last year, to me, I predicted what happened this year to happen last year, and he got one more year. He got one more year out of that body than I thought he would. But I think that the story fades fast with him. I will say that. Yeah. I think that we are A-Rodded out, and that he will fade into the sunset rather quickly, given his career.
Well, here's that. You say that, and then we had conflicting stories yesterday. We heard on Monday morning that A-Rod to the Marlins was just imminent, according to some people.
If he comes back and play, it rekindles. But assuming he does not, and
right.
As you said, since then we've had
his publicist
reports that seem to be accurate, saying he will not play again this year. If he does not play again this year, I do not think next April it's a big story. Now look, they'll find a story, and they have to write about something. So it may get more coverage than it deserves, and I may be wrong. But it will. Let's put it this way: for New Yorkers and people in this market in the tri-state, it will be a lot easier to ignore next April than it has been up to this point.
Right. No, I agree. His publicist comes out and says he's not going to play this year, and why would anyone surrounding Alex Rodriguez lie? There's no history behind that whatsoever. So I'm just going to take him at his word.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's. You got to imagine that the front office, the ownership of the New York Yankees could not be happier from Friday to Saturday as Alex Rodriguez got on his private plane, waved goodbye, crocodile tears. Or maybe they were real tears. Maybe I should be more fair there. Maybe they were real tears. And then Saturday, the 96 team comes in, and then these young guys, these baby bombers come in and just sort of rekindle the baseball in that stadium. Remember, have people remember what baseball is like, make baseball fun again. So what do you think? I mean, obviously it's good, but I mean, what did What did you like there from Tyler Austin and Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge there?
You know what? I didn't care about their performance, unlike a lot of other people.
Just their presence.
Yes, I wanted to evaluate them like we all do when a player comes up. And I always bring up Matz because people really look forward to Matz's debut. Met fans knew what he was down in the minors, and they knew the kind of pedigree that he seemed to have, and they were ecstatic about it. And then they had that glorious day last summer, and it was the kind of thing that you can't buy in a store. It's the kind of thing that keeps sports fans forever. If you were a kid and you went to that Mets game last year, you're a baseball fan for life. It's over. I mean, you have been hooked and brought into the boat. So those are the kind of moments you only get from players like this. And whether they deliver them or do deliver them this coming month of September, or whether they fall flat on their face and we're disappointed, I just think that it's time. I mean, it's just a matter of how stale can you get before you realize you're really, really stale. There's mold on the bread, and you've got no package. And what I really argued with fans on the air was, oh, this is the Yankees. They can't do that. The place will be a ghost town in September. I said, first of all, it's not exactly buzzing right now. Okay, there's not a lot of juice. Sure, the seats are sold, but people aren't showing up. There's no anxiousness in the stadium. There's no buzz around this team. They don't have a lot to lose here in terms of attendance or buzz because they have no buzz. So put that in a drawer because it's just not true. That was the thing that bothered me. Oh, the Yankees can't do this because if they're young, the place will be a ghost town. No, it won't. It'll be who knows? And now that it's worked out well, people are excited. I want to know whether I actually watching Judge in person think he's going to be a player or not, or Sanchez or Mateo when he gets here, or any one of these guys. And I expect the Severino type setbacks, and I expect bumps in the road, but I'm okay with it. Because what we had, people act as if they had a choice, like they could have gone on the way they were and plugged in a guy here. Nobody wants that anymore. And that's what I've been trying to say on the air. And it was rare, I'll tell you this, Brian, rare for a talk show host to come on the air a few weeks before that, say all these things and have them all come true. Trade Miller, trade Chapman, get rid of A-Rod. Everything happened. It was great. So I can't complain because these are all the things that I talked about in July that I wanted to have happen. And Yankee front office, please listen to us. It's great to have this great bullpen, but if you can't get a lead, it doesn't matter.
Right. You're
horrible offensively, and you're dull, and you're slow, and you're old, and you got to fix it. And if it means we have to give up this bullpen to do it, fine with me. Let's get started again, go into the shop, trade in the old clunker, and bring out a new car and hope it's a good one. So as you can tell, I'm ecstatic, and it's not based on what happened this weekend. It's not because the weekend was great. I think that's, a bonus. A tremendous bonus to start like that and get people juiced. But I didn't need that. I didn't need that to happen to still be convinced. And who knows what September will bring. They might be awful. We don't know.
Right.
But at least there's hope, and they don't look like they're lost up here.
Did you hear any overzealous fans on You Work Sunday, correct, on WFAN?
Yeah, I worked Sunday night. Not really.
Okay.
No, not really. It wasn't crazy after a couple of days. But I did hear a lot of people relieved that the page had been turned. That the product, whether it's a good product or a bad product, is not a stale product, and I don't now know what I'm going to see, and I'm anxious to see the lineup, and I do like Gregorius and Castro in the middle, and boy, if Sanchez can catch, that'll be great. And by the way, he's throwing people out.
Yes,
and yeah, those are the kind of things I heard, and those are the kind of things that make sense to me. That makes sense to me, and it makes Ellsbury's contract a little more palatable when you don't have Teixeira's and A-Rod's also at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that people weren't just already putting the Yankees
No,
in the World
they hadn't
Series.
gone nuts yet. Another week like this, and it'll be like you won't have to ask.
Yeah, because Kevin Moss was fun for a while, too. So, let's talk about the team on the other side of town where things are sort of trending downwards. The New York Mets, it's spiraling out of control in unequivocal Mets fashion. Any chance of the postseason? Or okay, say not. Go for it.
If 85 wins gets you to the postseason, then yes. I don't think there's any way they win more than 85. So I certainly don't think they're a favorite. I think, back to your last question about people overreacting, I think people really have not understood what a miracle last year was.
Yes, you're very right.
Yeah, I really
think out of nowhere.
They underestimated what August and September of last year took and how unlikely it was and how difficult it will be to do it again. To win 89, I think now they have to go 30-14, something like that. They're not going 30-14. They just don't have that kind of team now. And the guys that contributed a year ago, everyone thought Conforto. I mean, this is a caution to Yankee fans. Regardless of what you see out of Sanchez and Austin and any other youngster that plays in the next 6 weeks, we saw Conforto about as good as he could be throughout the end of last year, and he fell off the tracks. So there are no guarantees, and no matter what happens in your hot stove chatter, you have to temper it a little bit with, the resume is too short to predict where they will go, no matter how good or bad their September turns out to be. So that's a good little reminder for Yankee fans who are watching a lot of kids right now. But yeah. Conforto, Duda, d'Arnaud, obviously Cespedes. I mean, the August and September that those guys had, you just don't replicate that all the time. And I understand the optimism if you get in because you have such great pitching that, the Cubs don't want to play you. I believe that. I love the Cubs, but I don't think they want to play the Mets. I understand it.
I think they're in their
head.
They
couldn't hit a lick off of them last year. Not a lick. So I get all that optimism. I just don't get the optimism that, everybody else isn't that good and we can score some runs. Well, I'm not so sure you can. I'm not so sure you can. That lineup is pretty pedestrian right now. They're a slow team. America runs on d'Arnaud. It's a bad spot that they're in right now. They're just not feeling it. Terry's not had a good year. I defended Terry last year. I am a little less high on him than I was. He's had some gaps. I still don't think that he's the problem though, and I don't think that it's that it traces to him very much at all. And look, I think they're gonna end up right around 500. They're 500 now. I think that's where they'll end up.
Well, you mentioned Terry, and it's easy to jump on the manager when things are going just down the toilet.
Especially when you don't score, Brian. If you don't score, then every decision you make in a 6th, 7th, and 8th inning of a ball game is a critical decision, and every night it is. Because you never have the kind of lead that gives you a laugher. So you're under the gun every stinking night, and I think that wears on any manager. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, no, I think I heard you brought the same point up when you were on the air this week. I think you were talking with Kevin Kernan. Was that?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I did say that.
When it's one-run games, when it's 2-1, not every manager has to make that decision in every game. A lot of times, they're rocking chair games, as Francesa would say.
Not only that, but when you make a bad one in a 6-1 game, no one remembers it.
Exactly.
But if it's a 2-1 game, everyone remembers it. So you might be making the same decision, and it might have worked out or not worked out. But when the game isn't close, they don't point to you. But when your guy's pitching a gem, but you don't have any runs, so now you're 1-0 with some no-name stiff from Arizona or San Diego, and the game gets away from you. It comes down, let's blame the manager. Well, what about the fact that you had no runs for 7 innings against a pitcher who every announcer was pronouncing his name differently because no one had ever heard of him before? How about that? They don't talk about that part.
That's a great point. So the Mets are sort of, they're at 500. They're trending downward. They're not out of it. And you have A-Rod, who's always making noise, always bringing attention. So, that sort of takes up some of the space when you're doing radio in the summer. But there's got to be a lot of open blocks. There has to be times when you're on the air during the summer and you're just saying, what am I talking about? I really
I don't have that problem as much because I also do the national work for CBS. So I'm always looking at stories that are more that are more universal for sports fans, about what you pay and what the obligation they have is to put out a good product, and whether being loyal or not is a good thing, and how they take advantage of the fact that you won't go and get across the street and root for somebody else, so they don't have to be at the top of their game because you're not looking for a bargain somewhere else. You're locked in. You're a Cub fan. You're going to be a Cub fan. You're a Cowboy. I mean, the Cowboys are the best example. You're a Cowboy fan. You're going to be a Cowboy fan. So if Jerry Jones wants to be the general manager and you're fed up with it, what options do you have? You're going to go root for the Texans? No. Jerry knows it. You know it. So Jerry continues on, and there's really no way to stop him. And, topics like that, topics just, about cable television, about announcers, there's just a lot more out there to me than, what I don't do is lists. I don't do Mount Rushmore.
You don't want Mount Rushmore.
No, I don't do that. I don't do who's better, Mays or Mantle, Jordan or LeBron, who's your top 5 basketball players of all time. That's just not my thing. I just can't. I can't. So I don't.
How much Olympics are you talking on CBS or WFAN?
Hardly any. Just the fact that, to me, that it's more about, it used to be as a kid, it used to be more spectator oriented and a nationalistic pride in how we did and, what the medal count is. I have no idea what the medal count is.
Yeah, I can't get into it. I don't know.
No,
is something wrong with me? Am I communist?
No, I think it's very hard to, they didn't need golf. They didn't need tennis. They don't need basketball. There are no doubts. Serena loses. No one cares. What does it mean? Serena Williams loses at the Olympics, and that means what exactly? That she's no longer the greatest women's tennis player of all time? I mean, come on. It's just silly. It's just all the best players in the world come here. See, when we were, I'm older than you, but when I was a kid, the NBA wasn't international. The NHL was basically Canadian. Baseball had some Latin American influence, but not a lot else. And football is American now and American then. But the point is, all the best players in the world play here now. In tennis, in golf, in the NBA. The NHL. All the best players play here. So seeing them on the stage, it's a little bit like the All-Star game in baseball, where we now have interleague play. We really don't even have any reason to have 2 leagues anymore. No. It's just tradition that we do. We use the same umpires in both leagues. One has a DH, one doesn't. But basically, it's a mishmash of all the teams. So, of course, the All-Star game doesn't mean as much as it used to, because a lot of the uniqueness of seeing Bob Gibson face Carl Yastrzemski, Bob Gibson would face Carl Yastrzemski in April these days. So it's sort of like that. There's just so global, so much cable television, so much exposure that the Olympics and the All-Star games and things like that have clearly lost a lot of the luster that they used to have. And that's, by the way, part of the thing you can talk about in these off-summer months about, why is the All-Star game not what it was? How do they bring it back? Is it worth bringing back? There's plenty to talk about if you spend some time on, thinking about things that will affect everybody in the country.
Yeah, just to stay local for a second, I thought about this as you were just talking. Do you think the Yes Network will get back to the bargaining table with Comcast after this sort of rebirth of youth? Not a rebirth of youth, but this youth coming into the team next year. Do you see that maybe happening?
No, it's a good poker game, isn't it? Now Comcast subscribers may have more demand. They didn't have demand for stale, but they may have demand for fresh. And if they begin to call and complain about not having the Yankees, that could obviously change things. I'm sure the Yankees are hoping that fans do call. So That's an interesting dynamic, but I'm not against these guys holding their ground.
Yeah, why not?
No, I'm not. I would rather have them on there than not on there, but I also think that each has a fiscal responsibility and that, it is in the end sports and figure it out, figure it out. And the customer will eventually put a lot of pressure on Yes if these baby bombers end up being something worth watching. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have Comcast, so I don't have to worry, but it is very interesting. The theme is summer, I guess. So we're in the middle of this election, probably the craziest election ever. Well, let me ask you this. Is this presidential election the craziest one you can remember? You mentioned you are older than me. That's not a diss. That is just reality.
Not much you can do about it. It's not a choice.
Yeah, just acknowledging it. It is the truth. It is a fact. Is this the craziest election in your lifetime?
Yeah, I mean it is because Trump is so uncharacteristically glib and unconcerned about reaction to things that he says, which is just not the way you generally get elected. So it has made it interesting. So many people were so sure, just like they are in sports when they make predictions, that it would never get this far. That the Republicans would never have a guy this outspoken represent their party nationally. I mean, there are plenty of people that think Trump doesn't even want to win. He just wants to prove that he can. So I don't remember ever having that conversation about a candidate before where people were legitimately speculating that he really doesn't want to be president, but he does want to win to prove that he can. I don't remember ever having that conversation before. So, yeah, it's very, very different. But I think it's telling. I mean, I think it tells you about, and I do think it relates to sports because there's a lot of loyalty. There's a lot of, I can do whatever I want, just like a sports fan. And we all know sports fans that are great bandwagon jumpers, and we know diehards. And you know what? The sports businesses, they need both. They need the Golden State Warrior fans who didn't even know where Golden State was 3 years ago, and they need the Golden State Warrior fans that have been season ticket holders since they got there. So the same thing happens here, and to me, it's sort of fascinating how just the fact that that Trump is not a politician is a tremendous draw to him for so many people, and they don't really care about anything else. The fact is, he's not one of them, and I want to vote for somebody who's not one of them. And that's enough, and because, just like sports fans, there are no rules, I could say to you, well, how can you root for him? How can you root for that team? How can you root, like I could say to a Cowboy fan, how can you root for the Cowboys? They're 20 years of 500. They've got the longest running general manager in the business. Why? Because he's the owner, and he can do whatever he wants. And there's no one there to hold him accountable because you people keep showing up, and they're America's franchise. How can you root for? I can say that all I want. They're going to root for him. So it's in many ways similar. People say, how could you vote for Clinton? How could you vote for Trump? Because I can, and I don't need to tell you why. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to make sense. I don't need to debate you. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And in that sense, it's a lot like sports.
I think Bill Simmons said something rather recently just about, and it relates to the politics just because, we have more outlets for anyone in this world now. Social media has actually condensed it to the point where you follow who you want to follow. You don't listen who you don't want to listen to. So,
right.
So it's almost like, you talk to anyone who loves Hillary, talks to Trump. I mean, and while Twitter and social media has been around in other elections, it hasn't been this prevalent in any other election. I mean, you have the accounts of both the candidates going back at each other. Some intern coming up with some funny internet speak so everyone can retweet it. But it's interesting how everyone is just so divided. Like you said, like a sports fan, I'm going to follow Yankee fans. I'm not going to follow, a ton of Red Sox fans just so I can get in fights. No, I want to listen to what I want to listen to at all times, and that's it.
And I'm not open-minded.
It's not, that too. We can't have a conversation.
I have no interest in being swayed to the other side. And that's, a lot of A-Rod fans are that way. Mm-hmm. Clearly Trump and Clinton fans are that way. Cowboy fans are that way. There are hundreds of examples out there. I don't know if we're more closed-minded, Brian, than we were, but certainly it appears that we are.
Right.
And because social media gives us a chance to express our opinions, and I, for one, think there are plenty of benefits to it, too. I hear social media decried all the time as such a negative thing. It certainly isn't in my business, in the sports business, and I'm a stock trader as well, and it's not in that business a negative thing. It's chance for more ideas and more shared opinions. And to me, there's a lot of good that goes with it, but you can't ignore the bad, and you can't really deny the bad. And there's a lot of bad. I get it. I mean, I really do. But because we can all do it so fast and we react so fast, it gets heated quickly. And when you're backed into a corner, you tend to defend harder rather than go, hey, you know what? You might have a point. You know, we don't do a lot of, hey, you know what? You might have a point. We don't do a lot of that.
It's a lot of, I want the last word. That means I won the argument. That's basically
exactly.
Okay, so Trump, we're talking Trump. Speaking of megalomaniacs, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is laying down the hammer again. Another scandal, not a scandal per se, but a big story. No one's getting hurt. There isn't about deflation of football, so it's a little different. Involves the Al-Jazeera report that Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, James Harrison, and Mike Neal were listed on doing PEDs, along with Peyton Manning, who's been exonerated. And Goodell says these gentlemen need to come in. I guess they've been asked 7 times to come in and explain themselves. They're refusing to do it. And he is ready to enforce a suspension of an indeterminate amount. Should they be going in to talk to Goodell, or should they be standing their ground saying, I don't need to talk to you about anything?
They should be standing their ground, and they should call his bluff. The product is what's most important to Goodell, and Al-Jazeera report isn't credible enough in and of itself. If they have more damning evidence, they should show it to their fans and to these players and the Players Association. And if they don't, then I would do what the players are doing here. I think that it's ridiculous, and I also think that that the league is worse without those players, and that it doesn't need any more. This is inviting negativity, and I'm not quite sure why.
What if Goodell
I understand some of the other bad decisions that he's made, and I understand he's paid to be unpopular. It seems that a lot of people don't understand that's why he makes the money he makes. So like I used the A-Rod argument. A-Rod, we're going to give you $250 million, but if you use steroids, you're not getting in the Hall of Fame. Which do you want? You know what? I'm taking the $250 million, and I'm not going to go in the Hall. It's okay. I've got $250 million. I'm going to get over not being in the Hall. For Goodell, here's $45 million. You're going to take every negative thing said about our league, and they're going to blame you, and you're going to look crappy. Is that okay? For $45 million, yes, I'll do that. That's fine. I'll take every arrow, every sling. So that's his gig. So what I'm more interested in is what's the motivation for the league here? Do they want to pat Al-Jazeera on the back? Do they believe that the evidence is so credible? And if it is so credible, then do a better job of showing us that it is, and that these players owe you this appearance. Because everything I've seen so far, I'd be sticking with the Players Association here. I'm not having my guys come in because every Tom, Dick, and Harry, as James Harrison said today, is going to accuse me of something. I'm not coming in and answer to everybody that accuses me of something. I'm just not.
Right.
So I think the players are right here.
I agree. I don't understand the motivation by Goodell to do this. But
I'm trying to figure that out.
What if Goodell says, listen, the suspension starts now. You're not coming in. Do they, game 1, you're not playing. I mean, at that point, do they say, I better go in, kiss the ring, do whatever I have to do? Or do they continue
I don't think
to do
so.
this?
I think it's a bluff. So I don't think so. I think that they get a lot of backlash if that happens. And I think it's something the league does not want to do. This is not a Ray Rice thing. This is not an Adrian Peterson thing. The league does not want this to happen. And if I'm the Players Association, I'm telling my guys, boys, the league does not want this to happen. Sit tight, play it straight. You get suspended for a day or two. It won't last. They won't hold it. There'll be an uproar. It won't look good for the league, and it'll be rescinded. So just relax. That's what I'd be advising them if they were my clients.
Yeah, Well, it's a large story at this point, but I could see this getting ugly. I mean, because listen, Goodell does not like to look stupid. We know that. So these guys, they're going to play chicken like this. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's going to be a PR nightmare because listen, there's been people murdered by Aaron Hernandez, and the NFL has continued to be a moneymaker. But I wonder what will happen in the future here as we continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to wonder what will happen. I do not believe it will be a PR nightmare because I don't believe the league will let it get to that point. But, the league's made a lot of shaky decisions in the past, so I'm not, I'm not putting anything past them, but I don't think it will get to a point where it becomes a huge story. I don't think it will get to anything near Deflategate.
Okay. So real quick, Chris, what are your thoughts on the Jets and Giants going forward? I know that's only we're very, very, very early into the preseason here. What are your thoughts going forward? What are your predictions?
I hate the Jets schedule. I really hate it. I mean, I think
it's tough.
Yeah, and there's some play. Nobody feels sorry for you. It's one of the reasons we like the league is because it's not like the Cardinals are going to say, well, the Jets, they're not going to be that good. We're going to take it easy on them. You need your games. You go to Kansas City to play, you're going to earn it. You're going to earn every win you get, especially at the early part of the season when teams are trying to collect wins and collect insurance. So I worry about their start, but I do like their management team. I do like McCagnon and Bowles. And McAdoo, look, the jury's out. I like the way he started camp. I mean, I like the fact that he isn't satisfied. I need them to establish a running game and to establish an offensive line that they're proud of. And I need to watch this defense come together. I think their schedule is more favorable in a lot of ways, and there aren't a lot of teams that scare me. As we head into this baseball final and those 10 teams get in there, whichever 10 they are, we won't have much of an idea who's going to win it. I just don't think we're going to have a great sense of who will be the World Series champion when we finally see the final 10 teams. And I feel the same way about the NFL. Whether you want to call it parity or mediocrity or just a lack of sizzle on any one team, I don't see a lot of sizzle out there. So, on the one hand, the Jet schedule scares me. On the other hand, I say, who's that much better? Well, let me see it. I want to see it. I don't think anyone's proven anything. They don't come into me riding a white horse the way some years they do. I don't see anyone as, look out for them. They're going to be really unbelievable. I think Carolina will still be good. Arizona will still be good. Denver will be interesting with the new quarterback. There's some interesting teams out there. You never forget New England because Buffalo and Miami have been so bad, and the Jets are on their way up, but they're not there yet, and they still have a journeyman quarterback. So, there's teams to look out for, but I do think hope is pretty legitimate because there isn't anybody out there. Just the way Met fans are talking right now. Hey, we're not playing great, and we're 500, but we can get in. I mean, the Cardinals aren't playing great, and the Pirates, they got their problems, and the Dodgers got injuries, and you can always make excuses for why you're going to get in. So I like the Jet team better than the Giant team. I think the Jet team is a better team than the Giant team, but I think both have a little bit of hope, but I wouldn't be planning any parades.
Yeah, I could see both of them right around 500. Honestly, I could see 8-8, 9-7 for both teams. And if it weren't for the schedule for the Jets, it'd be much better. But it's just a brutal schedule. That's it's borderline unfair. We obviously we had a good season last year. They're not going to be rewarded with a nice schedule, but it's brutal in certain stretches, especially in the beginning.
Well, people have the misconception that that there's a big difference between how you play the year before and what kind of schedule you get. There's only 2 games that float. The 14 games are locked in. You play your own division twice each. That's 6. Then you play a locked-in division in the NFC and a locked-in division in the AFC. Well, that's 8 more. That's 14. Now you only got 2 floating games. Whoever finished second in, I guess it's the Central, Indianapolis, and Kansas City, I think, are their 2 floating games. That's all you get, based on your schedule the year before, whether you do horribly or you do great. The other 14 games are locked in, but your point is well taken that they could have used those 2 easier games that they don't get because in the year before they did get them, I think last year was Cleveland and, maybe Jacksonville. I'm not sure, but it was two much easier teams because last year they were 4-12 going into the season. This year they were 10-6. So, yeah, you pay a price for that for sure. I think that, that if they can get that defense together early and come out of that first 7 games 3-4, that would be great. I mean, and that would set them up for a real legitimate playoff run, in my opinion. If they're 3-4 after 7, I like the Jets.
I think that would be very optimistic. Very optimistic.
Yeah, I think so too. I think 3-4 means one major upset, and it means you beat the Bills in Buffalo week 2, and then you get a minor upset in there as well. Yeah.
So let's do this full circle, Chris. Thanks for coming on, but I have one more question here for you. We talked about him earlier. What will your final thought of Alex Rodriguez be with the New York Yankees?
Oh, man, what will my final thoughts be? An era that, to me, was a black eye for the Yankees. I think that they bowed to a player. They took on a player who promised to be bigger than the team, which to me is not the Yankee way. And they paid a major price for it, not only in the fact that he did not shine in the postseason, did not play his best baseball in the postseason, but also the anchor of his financial situation, along with a couple of other shaky decisions, really handcuffed their ability to complete their baseball team. And that's why I'm so happy he's gone, because that anchor is thrown off and the boat now can sail again. And I think that that's the biggest benefit to the future of the Yankees, is that they don't have that around their neck anymore. So to me, I didn't enjoy his era. I do appreciate what he did in 2009, but I think the whole thing was a failure and it was a disaster. Now, business-wise, I saw the Wall Street Journal said that he may have made every nickel that he earned, that it may have been worth it for the organization to pay him what they paid him. But from a fan standpoint, not for me. Definitely not for me. I never spent more time negative about the Yankees in my life than I did while Alex was on the team.
I will co-sign on that. And to end here, I got a joke for you.
Good. I love to finish with a joke.
A man tried to sell me a coffin today. I told him that's the last thing I need.
That is as bad as mine. I mean, there is no pride. You have no pride at all.
Absolutely.
You're my kind of guy.
I lost that years ago. He is
my kind of guy.
Sports talk show host on WFAN and CBS Sports. You can find him on Twitter at More to Say. Chris, thanks for coming on again.
Brian, a pleasure. We'll do it again down the road, brother.
So that's Chris Moore, our old friend. It's great to have him back. Great to have him back. The guy should be on the radio more. I know I'm definitely not alone when I say that. So remember, you can listen to this show on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Play. Remember to follow me on Twitter at BrianBuck13 and at Red Ticket Blues. By the way, if you like the shows you listen to on those podcasting venues, remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You should know this by now. I should not have to repeat this. Are you remembering? Well, if you're listening to this again, then maybe you did. Anyways, if you really like the show, then leave a rating, because it means a lot to me. It means a lot to the popularity of the podcast, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. It is a personal favor. Anyways, with all that being said, I'm out of here.